Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Wolverine podcast here on Monday, April 28th, a gorgeous Monday, April 28th, here in the state of Michigan. For those of you here and hopefully nice elsewhere, wherever you're at. We appreciate you being here. Anthony Broom here with Chris Ballas, and we have a lot to get to today. Clayton Safey, of course, wrapping up the last 2 days of vacation, a much-deserved vacation, but we have some to get to. You guys finally got to watch the spring game. It aired on Sunday morning on Big Ten Network. We both did a rewatch of it. We'll give you some of our thoughts. And I think more so for me, and we'll get into it, but I think reinforced or maybe, I don't know that it changed a whole lot on rewatch, maybe reinforced a few things, but we'll talk about that. Obviously, NFL draft this weekend, 7 Wolverines selected. They've now had 52 picks over the last 6 years. That's incredibly impressive. Yaxel Lendeborg made his way into Ann Arbor over the weekend. We'll check the latest on that and then take your guys' questions and get out of here. But Chris, welcome back. Wonderful day outside and a very busy weekend.
Gorgeous. And it was a gorgeous weekend, frankly, too. So it was fun. You guys did a great job at holding down the fort on the NFL draft stuff. Somebody asked me today, I was on the Huge Show, and they said, what about next year's? Is it going to be an eventful day for Michigan? I'm like, not on day one. Maybe a Derek Moore, right? In your estimation, maybe who are the guys next year? Maybe Rayshon Benny, I think, but I don't see anybody on offense. Do you?
Yeah, it's interesting. Just before we got on here to record, I'm working on something. Who is the who are the candidates to be maybe this team's who's going to be their next first round pick? Because I think we've heard them even say publicly. I think Wink has said this publicly. Like they think they have a lot of day 2, day 3 picks on defense, and that they're deep there. But in terms of who's that next first rounder, Derek Moore, I think, could be in the mix for that. I didn't realize this. He's got 34-inch arms. That's like elite by NFL standards. The length
or around the bicep. Because I'm at 33
length.
This way.
Oh,
okay, just kidding. No.
Well, this ain't that kind of show. You got to pay extra for that.
Well, you know what? This helps. It absolutely helps. You're right.
Yeah, so he's got the length. I think production, finishing plays. He tied Josiah Stewart last year in pressures. Josiah Stewart, obviously, we'll talk about him. He went in the 3rd round of the Rams, but he's a guy, when you project things like that out, I mean, you're looking for guys with traits. I think Jayshawn Barham, if he has a big year, all of a sudden you're talking about an athletic linebacker who can rush the passer, drop back in coverage. Maybe he's a guy. I don't know, but they have a lot of guys. I don't know if they have a lot of first-round guys. And from there, you start to turn your attention to, well, there's a couple 5-stars in this recruiting class they just brought in. Then we're projecting way out, and it's a little ridiculous to even have that conversation. But when you bring in guys like Bryce Underwood, Andrew Babalola, they're rated 5 stars because they're expected to be high draft picks if they develop. And not to toot our own horn, but our Charles Power over at On3, he runs our ratings. I think On3 was the most accurate site of the 4 major sites this weekend when it came to predicting first-round picks and relative to where guys were ranked. So great job, Charles. We appreciate all the hard work you do for the network. So we'll how about we take care of some business? We'll get into the show from there.
Let's do it.
All right. We are brought to you, of course, today, first off, by our friends at HomeFieldApparel.com. Use that promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order. Hear us talking today about how the weather's changing. I've been hyping up joggers and sweatshirts and crew necks these last few months. Now you're going to want to switch to the T-shirts. Maybe, if it's a little chilly still, a long sleeve T-shirt. But their stuff is light, breathable, vintage-inspired looks up and down the site. They've got hats if you want to keep the sun out of your eyes. They've got a little bit of everything for everyone, whether it's football, basketball. There's a couple baseball designs in there. I have a Script Michigan baseball hoodie that's pretty sweet. So use that promo code Wolverine for 15% off your first order today at HomefieldApparel.com. That's Wolverine for 15% off your first order today at HomefieldApparel.com. We are also brought to you today by ourselves. Use the promo code UM1 to get 2 months of access to our site for only $1. It's what Clayton Safey always affectionately refers to as the best deal in America. It's inflation proof, it's tariff proof. So get in on that today while you can. And of course, be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more videos from the Wolverine, whether it be us, recruiting guys, etc. So All right, let's move into spring game rewatch. Chris, you put an article out today with your thoughts on the rewatch. And I think the main topic of conversation for a lot of folks, they're going to want to know is upon rewatch, how did Bryce Underwood look in this game? For me, I think that the rewatch more or less kind of solidified what I saw from, just the live look that we had and some of the notes I had taken. With the benefit of having a full starting infrastructure around him this fall, I'm not really concerned with a whole lot from what I saw in that spring game. Now, there were a couple moments where obviously you take too long to audible or change a play and you get called for a delay of game penalty. And I like that they were calling those on him, presumably not just in the spring game, but throughout spring practices. Because if this guy's your starter, operationally, this needs to move in rhythm and move pretty fast. But you see the talent there. You see, he puts a lot of his incompletions. I mean, he's still putting the ball pretty much exactly where it needs to go, or a spot where only his guy can make a play on it. And I'm not. We can go over box scores and stats all we want, but just from a pure individual perspective, I walk out of this feeling a lot better about this guy. He's going to be their starting quarterback. I'm sure we'll write stories about, it's a battle and nothing's official yet, but this guy's going to start this fall.
It's not a battle with Jaden Davis, the backup on Saturday, but it will be maybe a battle with Mikey Keene, who has taken 2,000 something snaps right at this level. So, and he's going to win it. You're right. Bryce Underwood is the best physical quarterback on the team. I don't think there's any question about that. The ball is effortless when it gets there, and it gets there so quickly. And the receivers on a stop route a couple of times, they turn around, that ball is there. You can almost hear it from the press box whizzing down there. So he had a couple throws too. One that he would want back. He had Channing Goodwin wide open in the middle of the field, and he overthrew him by about 10 yards out of the back of the end zone. Now, there was a strong wind coming from the north, which he's going to have to get used to. J.J. McCarthy had to get used to that, right, when he was at Michigan. And he did, and he got better. He also had a beautiful throw down the right sideline to Jamar Browder, the true freshman, off his hands that would have gone for probably 40 yards. That was a dime. And then he had some great throws to tight end Jalen Hoffman, who was really impressive. And for all those people that say, yeah, it was just a spring game, the hands, right? You could tell by the way he was catching the ball that this kid's going to have an opportunity. This is not going to be a kid that just sits on the bench. He's going to get, I don't know how much behind Max Bredesen, but he's going to get into some games and he can be a pass catching option. So, but Bryce Underwood is the real deal. The way he's built, by the way, does not look fat at all, right? Those pictures that were circulating with the supposed spare tire around him, and everybody's like, oh, he's been getting fat and happy. The kid is a specimen. And he seems to really have a great command of the huddle and know where he's going with the ball. So, no question in my mind, he's the guy. It really just our next topic probably is he going to have the blocking in front of him on that offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, I'll stick with him for a second here, just with as it pertains to Hoffman. Something that sticks out to me, when you bring in these number one overall recruit type of players, which Michigan's never had a quarterback to this extent before. But the expectation is that those guys are going to come in and whatever they have around them, they're going to elevate it and make it better. And I'm not sitting here saying that he's going to turn Jalen Hoffman into an all Big Ten tight end or anything like that. But I think to a certain extent, you see, when he has that comfortability, he's going to make guys that you might not think are that highly rated look better around him. I would have loved to see him on the same team as a Donovan McCulley, or, we saw him with a couple of the young receivers. I think Marsh was on his team. Browder, as you said, was on his team. I get the sense he's going to be a guy that, one, is able to take what defenses give him, and two, is going to make the guys that he has around him better just by him being out there. And that's, again, I'm not making any proclamations that he's the number one overall pick in the future, but you make that investment to not just bring in talent at the position, but a guy who lifts up your program and let's face it too, maybe hide some deficiencies as well. And I'm not saying that tight end was a deficiency or Jalen Hoffman isn't highly thought of in that locker room, but I think he has the potential to make guys better.
Yeah, this isn't Braylon Edwards and Jason Avant and Steve Breston, who played in 2004, for example, when Chad Henne was the freshman starter. He's going to have to be that guy who really makes some of those guys better, in my opinion. You don't have the veterans. You don't even have a Rowan Wilson out there, who was a really good receiver here, but he wasn't in that upper echelon of best receivers ever. So it's going to be interesting, and to see, to me too, how much the run and pass balance is. AB, are they going to want to smash and then run some play action with Bryce Underwood? How much are they going to let him do in the read option? How much are they going to do in the way of RPOs? Is there going to be a tight end? There's not going to be a tight end like Colston Loveland. You're not going to have a top 10 pick, but can Hogan Hansen be that Jake Butt light that guys like John Jansen have called him, and be another pass catcher in that offense? So that's really what I want to know. And but to me, in watching that again, I mean, just the way he handles himself, and the way he throws the ball. Those balls that were, remember, well, Alex Orji's first pass last year in a game that skipped on an out pattern, and everybody's head just dropped in the press box. Well, that's not going to be an issue with Bryce Underwood. That ball gets there in a hurry, and it's right where it's supposed to be. There's a reason he was the number one overall recruit last year and the number one quarterback. He's just a pretty special player. So now, again, it's just about protecting him. And I see Evan Link, a picture up here right now for those who are watching. And can he play left tackle? Is there going to be a left tackle? So, but I have no concerns about Bryce Underwood, and I think by the end of the year he's going to be really, really good in this offense.
Yeah, some of the most audible groans in a press box I've ever heard was some of the throws we saw come off the hands of Michigan quarterbacks last year.
Yeah.
You brought up Orji for a second, and I just in a split second kind of thought, like, imagine some of the stuff that and there's never going to be a game where Bryce Underwood only throws 4 times in a game. Like, I just don't think that's ever going to happen.
No.
But when you think about some of the things that they called for Alex Orji last year, where the entire box is stacked, and you can use this guy as a bit of an asset in the run game, which we didn't see a lot of that in the spring game because they weren't live. But I think they have the ability to kind of run stuff like looks like that back, where he is an option in the quarterback run game. And then when teams crash down to defend it, you have a guy who's capable of hitting those passes now.
Right.
So
yeah,
that's something that interests me. I'd be excited to see how that comes along. But we'll move to the offensive line now. And talking about things that the rewatch hammered home for me, Sharon Moore said that they think they have 3 starters in Gio El-Hadi and probably Greg Crippen at center. Obviously, Andrew Sprague at right tackle, but I didn't see anyone separate or really stand out all that much to me at the other spots.
No, and I think that people who were watching it and saying they were pleasantly surprised, are kind of seeing what they want to see. If a guy wins his rep against a defensive end like TJ Guy a couple of times, like Evan Link did, for example, well, that's what's supposed to happen, right? You're supposed to. And Evan Link, it's not just about one scrimmage in which you see a guy for 5 or 10 snaps. It is about the entire spring ball, and things that we've heard in spring are these guys need a lot of work. People that have seen them every day, these guys need a lot of work. And I thought it was interesting, and I wrote this today, was the first guy that both Chip Lindsey in the on-field interview and Sharon Moore said after the spring game. The first guy they mentioned about left tackle was Andrew Babalola. And Sharon Moore said that again on the In the Trenches podcast with John Jansen. He said, a true freshman, I think he's going to play a lot, or at least going to get a lot of time in practice at left tackle, and we're excited about that. So Babalola was moving people in the run game. I was watching him. He's strong. There's no question as a true freshman that he can play, but can he play left tackle? He got beat badly a couple of times on Saturday. They need to be better. Those guys need to be able to protect that blind side and just be overall. They've got to have somebody emerge, because it doesn't look like they're going to the portal, Anthony. So who's that going to be? I don't know, but I saw all of the potential left tackles get beat at least once, mostly twice. Brady Norton had one where he got beat. Link got beat once or twice, and Babalola. So that's something that they really have to shore up, because they've got their multi-million-dollar investment back there at quarterback. And I'm really not sold on any of these guys. They can talk about Gio El-Hadi all they want to. He had a rough year at times last year. Greg Crippen was okay. And, I thought that was an interesting, probably going to be Greg Crippen, because I'm like, who the hell else is it going to be at center, right? If it's not Greg Crippen. So to me, AB, I think Sprague will be good at right tackle, but to me, this is the big question mark. And I'm not as not as down on it as I was the quarterbacks last year when I said they needed to go to the portal. But to me, that is going to be the biggest question mark going into the fall.
Yeah, well, there's obviously more variables to it too. I mean,
Hmm.
quarterback was like we don't know if they have a quarterback, the
Right.
quarterback. Now it's like, do you have a right tackle? Can you move some guys around? Can you find a best five with what you have? And I think if last year taught us anything, that if someone doesn't run away with the job, they have no issue starting the young guy like they did with Evan Link and letting him work through it. And they say by the end of the year that they thought he was playing better football, and he was, but I don't know how much better it was. But Andrew Babalola, something that strikes me is that one, I think, there's a lot of truths that are told when these guys bring up names unprompted. And I think they obviously think highly of him. We talked about him earlier as being one of those 5-star guys. I think he physically looks the part. I think obviously, you go back to his recruitment. I know Stanford was in the mix. He winds up at Michigan. So he's a smart kid. You have to be smart to get in both of those schools and have both of those schools interested. So I can get on board with him just being the guy if none of these other guys run away with it. But
Hmm.
I'm sure they'd love for him to win the job, as scary as it might be, to trot a true freshman out there. If he wins the job, I think that is more good news for his future than it is bad news for the other guys out there, because you get to start that clock on his development. But any other thoughts on offense? Wide receiver, it's just tough to get a read on,
Yeah.
given that the guys are split up. And starters don't play all that much anyways. Tight
Yeah.
ends, a couple guys were out. Hogan Hansen was out. Didn't see much of Marlon Klein. I don't have much. The running backs. I wanted to
Yeah.
bring up the running backs.
Hmm.
Justice Haynes has got, we saw highlights of him last year. Obviously, we saw him a bit in the Rose Bowl a couple of years ago. He's got some juice to his game as a power runner, but man, oh man, that run that he had up the left sideline, that was impressive stuff too.
Yeah, it's more speed than I thought he had, right? And you can tell a little bit first about the vision to be able to bounce it out and then to get out there and start pulling away from people a little bit like he did. I was impressed. That's a really nice 1-2 punch. And I want to give Bryson Cudsdall some credit for what he did there, the West Michigan kid. And again, he's probably not going to play a ton, but if they're looking for a third back, he's in the mix there. There's no doubt about it in my mind because he did some really nice things. He broke a couple tackles. He showed some speed. So it was good for him. But to me, it's Jordan Marshall, and then it's Justice Haynes, and those guys will battle. I do think Marshall's number one. From everything we've heard, but Haynes to me showed me something, and it's exciting. And again, it's a split squad scrimmage. So Ben Hall had a big day, 2 years ago. Now he's in the portal, going to North Carolina. So no, we're not saying that what we saw is indicative of what you're going to see every Saturday. But I do think he's more than capable, and I liked the run blocking a little bit better too. AB, and again, a split squad, so you don't know, are these guys getting more push because you've got a third or fourth string defensive tackle in there? But that defensive line is deep, so some of the times they were moving the ball on that line impressed me too. So hopefully that running game will be as strong as we think it is, and that'll make things easier in play action and make things easier for the offensive lineman and for Bryce Underwood too.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just built to be a run first team. I
Hmm.
think that the best version of this team, you just control the trenches in the run game. You get both of those guys going, because I think it's going to, like last year, until Colel kind of separated from the pack, like we saw. I think it's going to be 1A and 1B. And then you have your young quarterback learning and making plays off of that. And with the guy that they have calling plays, I think they have a little better opportunity to take advantage of teams that might stack the box. So it still might not be the most aesthetically pleasing offense,
No.
but I think it's going to be a lot more dangerous this year. Defensively, it feels like for the fourth year in a row, we're saying this now. They're deep and they're pretty darn good.
Yeah, they are, that defensive line. Interesting though, when I went back and watched that film of the game, and they were interviewing Wink Martindale, Michigan's defensive coordinator, and he said, "I think you're going to see it be a little different this year because I really like our inside and outside linebackers more." And he said, "Yeah, their front seven's going to be good, but they're going to give those guys the opportunity to make plays." So I don't know if he meant blitzing. I don't know what he meant by that's going to be the focus of our defense. Other than he said last year it was obviously Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, and when you've got those guys, go out there and wreck people, right? That was a no brainer. So, but he's got Jay Sean Barham, who I think can be an even better blitzer than he showed last year. He is so quick to the quarterback. Maybe they put him on the edge a little bit more. Maybe they disguise some things a little bit more and rely on these guys to get to the quarterback. But so that was interesting to me. The corners, I thought Josiah Edmond played pretty well at times, but what we've heard from several sources now is that they want some more help there at corner. And I thought that was pretty interesting because, you've got a guy who, number one, probably is Shug, right? Jair Hill.
Mhm.
So you've got to be able to depend on him. And Zeke Berry is a guy who can play anywhere. And if he's playing corner for you, maybe that's his best position, but it probably isn't, if we're being honest. So if they want a little bit more help there, I think that'll be interesting because I love the safeties that they have, especially with Rod Moore there. So I really have no concerns about the defense, AB, especially in year two with Wink Martindale. I think this defense is going to carry them early and be the reason that they start the season off well if they do, which I expect them to.
Yeah, those guys are going to carry the load a bit early on, and unless you're circa 2021, 2022 Georgia, not every defense has all conference guys at every single position, but they've got it where it counts. I think they've got the goods up front. I think they have the depth up front. I think the linebacker play improved as the year went on. So, and I think they're deeper there as well. So excited about that. Didn't really glean anything much. Yes, they dominated spring practices. They more or less dominated the spring game, but that's pretty normal this time of year. And
Yeah.
I just trust the talent, the coaching that they have there overall. But any
I
other
want to
final
bring up
spring game? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the defensive ends. When Sharon Moore said, I bet nobody has four better in the country," and when he said that, that excited me because when you've got Derek Moore and TJ Guy, we've seen what they can do in bits and pieces. Dom Nichols is a guy that has really, really risen up, and as a pass rusher, if he stays the course and does what he's supposed to do, I think he's going to be an impact guy. And then Cam Brandt, but I really liked the good weight that they added on some of the interior linemen too. Trey Pierce looked big to me, a lot bigger. I don't know if you noticed it, but to me, he looked like a monster. And I think that Derek Moore, I've been saying this for 3 years. I was talking to John Jansen about this too, Michigan's former All American offensive lineman. He said, I've been saying it for 3 years. He showed it in the Alabama game. We saw him in the beginning of that game just wrecking people on Saturday too. I think he's primed for a huge year, maybe sneak into that first round, but I think he's a day two pick. And I think he's going to be that guy that really, it really sets the tone for this defense this year.
All right on. Spring ball in the books. Transfer portal is now closed. So, we're waiting on house settlement stuff to figure out what roster limits are, what the hell's going on with all that. Maybe there's a couple more guys to add. It seems like Michigan's in the mix for corners. EJ had some intel on that over the weekend. So again, use that promo code UM1 and head over to the website and check that out. We're going to move now into NFL draft, which was a fruitful weekend for the Michigan Wolverines. They've sent 7 guys to the draft. I think another 4 or 5 wound up signing as undrafted free agents. Good weekend at the office. And we talked about it. It was going to be darn tough to get to 4 first-round picks. They didn't. We thought for sure they'd get 2. They wound up having 3. So we'll just go with the first rounders first. You had Mason Graham go to the Cleveland Browns, first round, number 5 overall. After the Browns traded back from number 2, tight end Colston Loveland went to the Chicago Bears as the 10th overall pick, and Kenneth Grant went in the first round to the Miami Dolphins, number 13 overall, which was surprising to some people. But 3 picks in the first 13, not bad.
Yeah, and it makes you wish that last year's team accomplished a little bit more. I hate to say it, but if you'd had a better quarterback or whatever, and but they lost so much talent too. So the way it finished with wins over Ohio State and Alabama, you're 8-5, but you have these generational talents. Mason Graham is a generational talent at Michigan and the best defensive tackle to ever play here. And the fact that Kenneth Grant was mentioned in the same breath as him, as Nick Saban said on the telecast, he said, I don't remember seeing 2 guys like that. And this is a guy who played in the SEC or coached in the SEC for how long, right? He said those were the 2 of the best that I'd ever seen together. on the field at the same time. So I am extremely happy for both of them. They are both incredible young men from incredible families. Kenneth Grant surprised me a little until I realized, oh, it was Miami, and Stephen Ross, the owner, got on the phone with him, a Michigan man, big time booster. He likes to take those Michigan guys. I guarantee you he had probably some input on that decision. But this is not like a stretch that some people made it out to be. This is a guy who
No.
moves unbelievably well at that size. He is the highest character kid, just unbelievable young man. And I'm getting a little choked up just watching him there, man, because when it was announced that Jim Harbaugh was flirting with the NFL, he was in tears, literally thinking about maybe losing Harbaugh to the NFL and maybe not being able to go to Michigan. And so he got to live his dream there, and now he's getting to live his dream in the NFL. I think he's going to have one unbelievable career. And Will Johnson probably should have gone in the first round. There were concerns about a knee surgery he had a few years ago, but I think that's overblown from everything that we've heard. And if he is available, and I'm going to say it until the day I die, Anthony. I thought, availability is your best ability. I always give you credit because you're the one who said it. That kid is going to have an opportunity to do some big things, I think, with Arizona. So it's really, to me, it's almost like 4 first-round draft picks, like we anticipated. And I love the pick. I hate the pick, and I love the pick of Colston Loveland to the Bears, AB, because you and I both hate the Bears, but he's such a great fit there with Ben Johnson. So I hope he gets 1,500 yards receiving, and I hope they suck. How's that?
Yeah, well, typically Clayton called a shot last year. I predicted that Colston Loveland would lead Michigan in receiving. He's like, that's probably not a great sign for your passing game. So
Right.
I'll say this: I hope he leads the Bears in receiving.
There you go.
And that was a pick where when it gets made, you're like, it makes sense, and you just like shake your fist at the sky, like it just made too much sense. So
it did. But happy for the kid, man.
I wish him well, but I hope he fails.
Yeah, not him. I hope his team fails. There you go. Yep.
So there you go. 4 guys inside the top 50. You'll take that in any draft class. And yeah, there was some confusion about Will Johnson. The injury that was flagged was from the surgery that he had prior to the 2023 season, where he missed a couple games. There were some, I don't know the specifics of it. There was some talk on the broadcast that the concerns were that whatever procedure he had done would not hold up long through a second contract in the NFL or make it to a second contract. So 32 teams spoke their mind in the first round. All 32 teams could have had him. They all seemed to be in agreement that was a first round pick, was not how anyone was going to allocate that asset. And he goes to, I think, a solid spot with the Arizona Cardinals. We move further now into day 2. There were 2 picks in the second and third round. Of course, we just talked about Will Johnson. Josiah Stewart goes to the Los Angeles Rams, and interesting kind of, I don't know if I'd call it a twist, but he goes to a team that's in the mix for a playoff, always in the mix for the playoffs. They have a couple good young pass rushers in Byron Young and Braden Fisk, who actually played for Lou Esposito at Western Michigan. So there's the tie there. Happy for that guy. I think I'll say this. I don't think there's 89 players better than Josiah Stewart in this draft class.
I was hoping the Lions would take him, to be honest with you, because I think that he is everybody talks about the size, but he doesn't play that size. And all you have to do is go back and watch any film against any elite tackle that he played, supposed elite tackle that he played. He was moving people, and he won the Rose Bowl with one play. And you could say, oh, it's just one play. Go on and put on any other film of him out there, and he's playing like a guy who's much bigger and heavier than he is. He's got that much strength. So he'll play more of a Sam position probably in the NFL. You probably agree with that. But at the same time, this guy just knows football. His instincts are unbelievable, and he's a winner. So I love that pick for them. And I'm with you. I think that was one of the steals, even going where he did. I thought he is going to be a fantastic addition to that franchise.
With the caveat being that the guys that we watch for 3 years, 4 years, or in his case, 2 years, we always think they're going to outperform the slot that they were in, but
not always. They don't.
Yeah,
yep. There are guys that can go back and, some of the receivers in the past, Nico Collins, I thought would. One of his counterparts I didn't think would and didn't. So you can tell the guys, though, too, AB, that really love football, right? And I think there was something that they said, some of the guys mentioned, some of the GMs were talking about, does this guy play football because he's good at it, or does this guy play good football because he loves it? And Josiah Stewart is a guy that is both. He loves it and he's great at it. Going to be a great player.
Yeah, he's productive at 2 schools, which is
Yep.
always. I think there's even more that you can put into that now. And yeah, we talked about that last week. How there was the character concerns bucket, the injury concerns bucket, and now it seems, with NIL, there's kind of a third. Do you actually give a rip about football bucket?
Right.
And we know that these guys do. Heading into day 3 now, Michigan had a pair of 6th-round picks. The first being running back Kalel Mullings, who interviewed extremely well from what I was told during the process. The Los Angeles Rams, who we just talked about, sent a contingent out to his old high school to talk with coaches and get to know him as a person a little bit more. Mike Tomlin had a one-on-one with him. I think they went out to dinner after Michigan's pro day. So he was well respected across the league. He winds up with the Tennessee Titans. And we'll see what happens there. 6th round, you're fighting for a roster spot, but if he gets healthy, I think we know he's a guy that, especially at running back, all these guys that get drafted at running back have 3-4 years of tread off their tires. He's still relatively green at the position, and I thought showed a lot of really good stuff behind a lackluster offensive line last year.
He's making that team. I will almost guarantee it. So I don't know if there's you guys with your prop bets, you kids that are blowing all your money on these. Can I say that on these draft apps and stuff like that?
You're right. I can confirm that. So
there you go. So yeah, you're eating ramen noodles this week again, aren't you? So
that's right.
Anyway, but there's no question in my mind that a special teams guy, that you're right, he doesn't have the wear and tear on his body that others do. Now, last year he played through a separated shoulder and a high ankle sprain in that Ohio State game. You want to talk about a guy that's got heart and knows the game. And when we talked to him, you could tell how well he was raised and what kind of a kid he was. And so that surprises nobody at Michigan that he is that kid that interviewed extremely well. So excited for him, and I think he's got some good days ahead of him as a running back in the NFL and maybe a special teams guy. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
Last pick of the draft for Michigan, Miles Hinton goes to the Philadelphia Eagles, who they are just an offensive line conveyor belt. They always find guys, develop them. He's now teammates with Trevor Keegan. Those guys won a national championship together at Michigan last year. A guy that I think the challenge that Michigan took on when they brought him in is we got to get this guy to play as physically imposing as he looks, as you're wearing a cat for a hat there over there, guys. I know. Right. So if there's more in the tank for him, I think the Eagles will get it out of him. I think at the very least as a really solid backup tackle in the league.
You don't have a choice, right, when you're in the NFL. And he's one of those guys, fair or not, that you question, hey, does he love the game? Is he one of those guys that is all about football? Kind of like his brother, Chris, which is, again, maybe fair or not. But because it's like, and it reminds me of Gabe Watson in the 2000s when he was a big defensive tackle, probably a little before your time, where the coaches were like,
I remember him.
Yeah, he should be picking somebody up and throwing them on every down. That's how much we think of him and his ability in terms of his physical ability. But does he bring it every down? And I think Miles Hinton had a good year. Don't get me wrong. So, but at the same time, I think he's got more to give still. So can they get it out of him? I don't know. I was surprised by what he did at left tackle last year. And but I think he, again, like you said, he's got another gear. So he's got the goods. Can they get him to play with that edge that I don't know that you need in the NFL, but he should last for a while in the NFL just on his skills alone.
All right, I'm going to throw a trivia question at you. Now,
yep.
The company doesn't always like when we share specific content numbers, but I'm not gonna. However, what from draft weekend, what do you think our highest performing story was?
Probably Donovan Edwards, and probably rivals celebrating his lack of success being drafted are going to click on that article too. I don't know if that's the case or not, but I have never wanted anybody to succeed as much as I want Donovan Edwards to succeed. That guy went through a lot, played banged up, loves this place, great kid, and I think he's got a gear. Am I right about that?
You're actually dead wrong. It was
Okay.
William Wagner, the long
Are you
snapper.
shitting me?
I
Okay.
swear to
Never
God.
mind.
I swear to God.
So
Our supervisor Ryan Tice informed us of that earlier today. So
why?
William Wagner signed with the because no one knows who the hell he is, Chris,
Okay.
other than us.
Okay. Yep.
He is going to the Cincinnati Bengals. So William
Okay.
Wagner, the most priority of all the priority free agents, apparently.
Well, there you have it.
Josh Preeb signs with the Miami Dolphins. Makari Page signs with the New York Giants. And like you said, Donovan Edwards, undrafted, he heads the New York Jets. So you have a couple West Bloomfield guys both heading to the Big Apple. I don't really have thoughts on that. I mean, of all the guys, Donovan Edwards to me is the most interesting. For him, you're probably looking at, your role is a third down back that brings some value on special teams, maybe in the return game. I think I like Donovan a lot. He was a captain. He's a guy that we talk about rising tides in terms of personalities. I think he was that in that building. At the running back position, if you don't break tackles and you don't really create anything more than what's blocked for you, there's a lot of guys that can run fast, but you got to be able to do the other things too. So I hope it works out. He's going to a good spot. Obviously, Aaron Glenn, we know him well from defensive coordinating the Lions the last, whatever it was, 3 or 4 years. He's the head coach there now. So I think what kind of team, what kind of organization he's going into now. But yeah, we'll see what happens from there. But I don't really have any thoughts on the other guys. I hope that they stick. Hope they do well, especially Will Wagner.
If he's making us money with clicks, Will, go out there and do your thing, man. Snap that ball through a brick wall.
That's right. Any other draft thoughts? I don't, unless you want to white. I have nothing more to add unless you want to do another half hour of two uninformed white guys talking about Shedeur Sanders.
No, thank you.
I don't think anyone.
I don't want to touch that one. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go to questions.
Other than to say that I am a big fan of humility, and if that makes me a bad guy, then so be it.
I was about to move to questions, but we have one more thing to talk about. Yaxel Lendeborg made his way into Ann Arbor this weekend. The UAB forward who has committed to Michigan, #1 overall player in the transfer portal, finally made his visit to Ann Arbor. We gathered some info. I'll give credit where credit's due. Tony Garcia of the Detroit Free Press was first to report the visit was happening. We did a little more digging. He got in on Friday and stayed through Saturday night. So a bit of a lengthy visit. He posted a video on social media, posted some photos. Seemed like it went well. Seemed like he had a good time. I've heard some buzz that the Michigan staff is pretty happy with how it went. So now it's just a matter of, as we move into the month of May, and actually as we sit here Monday, April 28th, exactly 1 month from today is the deadline for the NBA draft. So some big decisions coming here soon, but I don't know how much this weekend moves the needle or changes the likelihood that he's here or not, but I think that they did about as good a job as they could based on, at least his review of it.
The only thing that I would say is that if there was no chance he was coming, he wouldn't have been here, right? So I think that's a good sign. And I think anytime with Dusty May, because Dusty May is a big part of the reason, obviously there's cash involved, but is a big part of the reason that these guys are committing to Michigan. They build relationships with him. I talked to Winters Grady, the true freshman coming in. He said, didn't tell me what I wanted to hear. He told me how he would use me and how he said I would fit. And I trust him. And I had a great relationship with him. So I think that as much time as he can get with Dusty May is good for Michigan. So I would love to see him in a Michigan uniform. I can't root against him with his NBA dream. If he tears it up at the camp, right, and it moves into the first round, he's got to go. You got to take that guaranteed first contract. And I think he would. But at the same time, if he's that fringe guy, Michigan can compete with those second round contracts. And you're seeing that. So if he does come to Michigan, AB, this is a contender. This is a Big Ten contender and a contender to do some things. Yeah, it's going to be a different team. There are only going to be a few faces that we recognize, but that's just the way it is with college basketball right now. So we are trying to get a hold of him to hear how the visit went, and we are going to hopefully have a story with him this week. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I think there's a path to them being a contender, whether he does come or not. Now, again, that's going to take a lot of steps forward from a lot of guys that are on the roster. And there's still a few things to address, but by and large, transfer portal closed for football, transfer portal is closed for basketball. There are still some guys out there they can get if they need to, work contingency plans. And you assume that there is a contingency plan in place. But the one thing I'll say about him is that he is still relatively new to the game. And I think that another year in college, like usually when a guy spends 4 years in college, the NBA wants nothing to do with you, because if you can play at all and you have traits that they can project out, they'll take you after your freshman year. They don't care. With Lendeborg being so new to the game, and I think he played 2 years at JUCO before he wound up at UAB. I don't think it's as much of a slam dunk that, even if he gets a guaranteed second round contract, he's gone. I think that I just don't think it's that cut and dry. And again, like you said, if there's no chance he was going to come, he doesn't make this trip. And I think it checks an important box, and just setting yourself up the best you can. I don't think Michigan's getting jerked around by him. I don't think that they are just going to sit on their hands if he doesn't come either. But in the here and now, the fact that he was here, the fact that you ended the month of April not only with his commitment, but with him still committed and then on campus, it's not the same as the way that they hit on every single guy that visited last year. They wound up hitting on. It's not the same scenario, but again, you got to feel pretty good about it.
Yep, without a doubt. And again, just the job that Dusty May has done, really revamping this roster in a year from last year is remarkable. The guy never sleeps. The guy never takes a day off. And that to me is a quality that you need to be a college coach. You need to embrace it, right? You can either run from it and be, I don't like this sucks, and I don't want to do it, and I'm going to half-ass it, or you can be that guy that goes all in and says, if we're going to win, this is the way we're going to do it, and I still love the college game, and that's what I want to do, and that's Dusty May. So glad to have that guy here. He was everything that I expected him to be in year one, with the exception maybe of a few more turnovers than we'd hoped, but they still won. They still found ways to win, and I do think that will be fixed. I don't think that's going to be. If you go back to John Beeline's first Michigan team, for example, they had turnover issues, and more so anyway than his teams after that. So there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to fix that too. So love the direction of this program. Would love to see Lendeborg, but if not, like you said, there are several others coming in and several others returning that are going to be great players, and that I can form the nucleus of a really good team.
And before we get angry comments about, Anthony keeps mispronouncing his last name. In my head, it sounds exact Lendeborg, but
right.
Comes out quick, says Lendeborg.
Right.
I don't know. It's just a tick, I guess.
It doesn't matter.
I know there's going to be some guy, and now I probably just opened myself up to it because
there you go.
I'm insecure.
Good thing we're not live right now. Otherwise, this thing would be beeping with comments about you suck. It's Lendeborg.
That's all right. No, you know what? We love it. You know what? Comment on every mistake I make. Go. It's good for the algorithm. So
there you go.
Let's go to questions now, and we will go. Obviously, us not being live today, they'll all be from the message board. So again, use that promo code UM1 for 2 months of access. It'll get you a little perks like that too, where you get questions that are featured on our Monday show. Take this one from Bleed Blue 18, who says, "What is the biggest obstacle to seeing improvement on the offensive line? Is it coaching or talent?"
Boy, that's a tough one, right? Can you call it coaching? Grant Newsome's been there for 1 year. Did I expect them to be better last year? I did. I thought with the experience they had and the way they were touting these guys, because remember, Grant Newsome, the line coach, was the one that said Gio El-Hadi would already be in the NFL if it weren't for the guys playing in front of him. And then he did not play that way. They can say that he had a great year. He didn't. He had a solid year at times. There were times that he just wasn't good enough. So he did not play, in my opinion, to his potential. The same with Josh Preeb. I thought both of those guys would be better. So I think it's a little bit of both. I don't think that it's like one source told me, they said, there's not all American talent on this team, but there's enough talent to put together a good offensive line. And we didn't see that last year. Hopefully we see it this year. But this is a big year for Grant Newsome. And I do think there's a reason they brought in Juan Castillo as an assistant to help Grant Newsome. I think they know they need to get more out of these guys.
Yeah, is it coaching or talent? And I'm here to tell you, I think it's a bit of column A, a bit of column B. I don't think they recruited particularly well there the last few years. And, it's not a position group that lends itself to, we just talked early in the show about how rare it would be for a freshman to start on the offensive line. There's a reason it doesn't happen that early because it takes time to develop guys. And as a result of that, now it's going to take time to fix it. So they have to bring in more talent. I think they've done that with what they got in Andrew Babalola. Ty Haywood will be here in the summer. You have to keep stacking acquisitions like that because I think more than ever, this sport is talent based. I think that, there are obviously good coaches, great coaches out there, but now it's kind of more about the price tag. And with the price tag comes the level of player that you have. And I think that that's just going to take some time to even out. And if you can just get it up to adequate for this year, I think this team will be pretty good. So that's where I'm at with it. Let's go to Go Blue 101, who asks, do you think we're done in the portal for both basketball and football? Also, do you think Yaxel goes NBA or Ann Arbor? If we stays, we are a Final Four contender. Hey, you must have listened to the show in the future and then came back and asked a question because we just talked about that.
Great question. 50-50.
Yeah, I think it's 50-50. I'd probably still slightly lean he goes just based on what he said publicly about wanting to go and being focused on that process. Done in the portal for both basketball and football. I think they're going to try. Football's going to try and get a defensive back in here.
Mm-hmm.
That seems pretty likely. Offensive line seems like not. Wide receiver seems like not. Basketball, we'll see. I think it might be tied to Lendeborg. There, I said it the right way. So yeah, I there could be one more in the portal for each of the sports. I do think Michigan's probably going to bring in, I would think, an international recruit or two, maybe, because we know Dusty was in Europe, a couple weeks ago. So I think that's where we're at with that roster as well.
Yep, I agree with that. And that's all I got to say about that. And I think that's where we need to wrap it up because I got a quiche in the oven there, Broomer. All
right. Well, I was going to see if we had any more, but I think a lot of them are stuff we can kind of pick up and talk about later this week when we got a 3-man booth here. So, like I said before, be sure to use that promo code UM1. Gets you 2 months of access to our site for $1. I think we hit our quota on mentioning that today. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel for more, whether it's us, whether it's the recruiting guys. I know both EJ and Ethan are on the road this week, so a lot of good stuff coming from those guys, whether it be here or on the website. So you're just going to be locked in here in general. And I'll say this, no spoilers. I think we locked a football preview cover today, so maybe some info to share on those maybe a little later this week, pre-sale codes, all those types, or pre-sale link, I should say, all those goodies. So fun times. We're already kind of in the gears are moving towards football season mode here at thewolverine.com. So for Chris Ballas and our producer Megan behind the scenes, I'm Anthony Broom. Thanks for watching, guys, and enjoy this weather. Enjoy your night. We'll talk to you next time.